We've made it to October, and it is time for our Allied Cooperative Program. I've got Tom Hoffman. He's the agronomy sales lead out of Marshfield. And the harvest is underway to varying degrees in different places across our state. What are you seeing in the Marshfield area?
Well, in the Marshfield area, in the north central part of the state, we are moving along. I mean, it's slower than maybe we'd like to see, but not too bad. Obviously we had wet weather and a delayed planting season, so some of the delayed harvest was expected and planned. But soybeans, there's a start on soybeans, which isn't uncommon for our first planted beans and for this time of year. So I think we're right on track with the early planted stuff. Corn silage, is really just getting going. I mean, it's happening, but there is a lot of late planted corn due to wet weather, and some of that still needs a little bit of time. And obviously those acres were intended to be planted for the best utilization of the land. So it's on track, but some of that's probably not as far along as we'd like on a normal year. But nonetheless, it's happening. As we go in the western and southern part of the geography, I think soybean harvest is full swing, right happening well. Corn silage is even happening and getting wound down in a lot of cases and completed. So that's moving along quite well. Obviously more in the western and southern parts, I think planting progressed well, and obviously the growing season really progressed very well.
One of the things I notice when I get out driving around in general is the corn color this year. It seems to be kind of yellow this year. What was the reasoning for that?
We really have had some yellowing corn, and obviously with the amount of precipitation throughout the growing season, we were significantly above average, and there was some nitrogen lost in various ways. And so consequently at this time of the year, it's probably cut the crop a little short versus what it would like to have. So we're seeing a little bit of yellowing due to lack of nitrogen, lack of sulfur. In some cases there may not have been enough put on in the first places, and in some cases there was enough put on, but yet it was lost. In some cases they maybe should have had a nitrification inhibitor to protect it in some manner. There's a host of things there, but nonetheless, I mean, there's been some a significant amount of nitrogen lost, and consequently the corn crop is seeing it, and some are going to feel it. I mean, that's going to take the top edge off of some of this corn because of not quite enough nitrogen and maybe even some sulfur to finish it out the rest of the season.
What about some of the other challenges out there in those cornfields? Was there any reporting of any tar spot?
Yeah, so we did. I think we were quite concerned all growing season, the likelihood of tar spot with obviously our moisture situation, had plenty of moisture. And I don't know if we saw it so much early, but I would say here later on, as we get to the later part of the year, we certainly have a lot of positive diagnosis of tar spot. I think some came in late. There are going to be some fields that it did affect it, but I think there is going to be some fields where it came in, closer to maturity, and it might not affect it too bad. But it does seem pretty obvious, those people who use some fungicide applications here in 2024, it's shown to be very, very worthwhile. We thought that would be the case. We've been trying to encourage people to keep that in mind, but those people that have done it, we hear many reports already, even before harvest, that they were very glad they did, and it's shown to be a very good value.
And what about those soybean fields? Any challenges out there?
Yeah, so soybean fields, again, there's just a plethora of diseases can happen, and the fungicides appear to be working well where they had very good growing conditions. The white mold, if we do see some white mold again, but it seems like we always have a certain amount of white mold, and that's just a constant issue that we'll have to address, trying to use some fungicides to protect it as well as other cultural practices, plant row spacings, plant density, other seed treatments, on and on, just a plethora of things to try to keep that in check. Because that one's a real challenge, and that can be quite devastating if it gets very bad. But again, it does vary from year to year on how severe it can get. We certainly have some this year. I don't know if it's as severe as maybe we thought it would be, but there is certainly a very good presence of it.
What about next year's crops if these fungicides are not treated and taken care of this fall? Will it have a negative effect on our crops going in next year?
It can, and as you know, diseases are different in the fact that we can have inoculum present in our environment, but you do have to have a susceptible crop that you've planted and the right environmental conditions to bring that disease out. So let's take tar spot, for example. So we can have residue, and if it overwinters, we would think we should see it. But it does depend upon the weather when it's trying to develop to see how severe it will affect the crop. So it can be a little hit or miss, but when it's a given that you know that there is some residue that's present with it, that's one of the factors that plays into, hey, what's the likelihood of seeing it, So same thing with white mold. If the sclerotia is in the ground, if the conditions are right, we're going to see it. So there is a certain amount of stuff that seems predictable. The hard thing is predicting what Mother Nature gives us.
She seems to always have the upper hand.
Mother Nature has a certain amount of control, but I would say, using good knowledge and good practices, controlling what you can control and what you can really gets to be a big deal.
Always good to keep walking out in those fields, whether it's harvest or planting season, with Tom Hoffman. He's the agronomy sales lead from Marshfield. And that's our Allied Cooperative program on this Wednesday morning. I'm Jill Welke.